Today's conversation is one I think so many people are deeply, deeply craving right now. Not just a conversation about success or healing or self-development, but a conversation about what it actually means to become fully mother-freaking alive after pain. Today, we are joined by one of my favorite humans on the internet. I almost said Dr. Jacqui. It kind of fits, right? It kind of fits. Who is the founder of Light Warrior and World Builders. He is a coach, an artist, a speaker, and a creator whose story spans everything from childhood trauma, addiction, street life, and failed suicide attempts through to entrepreneurship, fatherhood, spirituality, leadership, and purpose-driven impact. This episode is really about the journey out the mud, which is also, just by the way, the name of his brand new album. We dive deep into modern healing culture, spiritual ego, purpose, creativity, God, consciousness, faith, business, world building, and why so many humans are feeling spiritually starving in a world that has never been more connected. This, I already know, is going to be one of my favorite conversations we've ever had on this podcast. So whether you are currently navigating pain, purpose, reinvention, healing, business, spirituality, or simply trying to understand yourself and your place in the world on a deeper level, I know that there's going to be something in this conversation for you. So welcome, Dr. Jacqui.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I just want to say, like, everything that you're doing with this podcast is so powerful. And it's an absolute honor to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here. Okay, I'm going to drop something like it's hot. Are you ready? And you might recognize this a little bit. Came from the jungle, I'ma find my way. It's through the trouble in the night that we will always see a brighter day. It's through the beauty and the struggle when you heal your pain, shine your light into the world. You got to be the change. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Those lyrics are off the chorus of a brand new song that I'm actually releasing today. On the day that we record this podcast, called Be the Change. And it's the first song of my new album, Out the Mud. And those 4 lines really just encapsulate the story of my life, because I've had to go through a lot of struggle, and life can feel like you're in a bit of a jungle sometimes. So finding my way through the jungle of life and going through a lot of trauma and trials and tribulations and adversity that created a lot of pain in my life, and having to heal from that pain, which is a lifelong journey within itself. And then when you heal from the pain of the trials and the tribulations and the traumas, then you realize that there was beauty in that struggle all along. And it becomes this artistic poetry that is the beauty of life. And then once we move through all of that, being able to share that and shine that light into the world through what we embody, which is being the change that we want to see in the world.
What a perfect explanation for those lyrics, because when I heard that song this morning on your IG, it just hit me. And you're so right in what you say. There is such a pathway to purpose. There is such a pathway to the beauty through the pain and through the struggle. And I think sometimes, you know, people can sit and listen to these conversations and it's like, yeah, that's all easy to say, like just sprinkle some glitter on that. But when you really understand that that is the pathway through the pain, because there is beauty on the other side, it almost gives you this like untouchable faith.
Yes.
This untouchable faith that you know that if you can make it through the night, you will see a brighter day. And that's such an important thing for people to really understand. And I love how you've been able to really weave that in through your music. And I'd love to know from you, what do you believe the difference is between somebody who lets pain destroy them and somebody who can turn it into purpose?
The difference is, I think it just comes down to choosing, but knowing that we have a choice. Because I think for so many of us, we can, and this, I'm speaking from experience here, we can become victims to the circumstances that we experience in life. I know I definitely was for a large portion of my life. I felt like I was a victim. I actually had a belief system that I was cursed.
You literally thought
I thought I was cursed. So in the first 23 years of my life, even probably more, about 24 years of my life, I went through so many different traumatic experiences, all like back to back. So it was just like one after the other. And it got to this point where I felt like someone or something is like playing a trick on me, or like playing a game with my life. Because it was like from the pretty much the moment I was born. Like I was born into a broken household. Father left when I was real young, raised by a single mother, had a whole bunch of trauma from that childhood. And then as I grew older and I went through like my development years, that led to a lot of like abandonment issues, mental health issues, never feeling like I fit in anywhere, feeling like a lack of identity because I was mixed blood as well. I was half Maori, half European. My father was Maori, so I didn't have that deep connection to my indigenous native side, even though that's like a huge part of who I am. So I had this like loss of identity, and I was raised in like the hoods of West Auckland here in Aotearoa, and there was a lot of, crime and violence and drug abuse, and I got pulled into that world very, very early. So I struggled with addiction from a very young age, like drug addiction, like hard drug addiction. I started selling drugs, dropped out of high school, ran away from home, got into a lot of like ended up in hospital multiple times, almost lost my life multiple times. And then through all of that, I became a father at the age of 19. Then my mum got cancer when I was 21, and then she passed away when I was 23. And then after she passed away, I had about close to 10 people in my life that passed away. Friends, family members, murder, suicide, overdose, all sorts of different things, right? So as I went through this process, it felt like I was constantly getting given all of these experience, like all of these challenging experiences. And for a big part of that period, especially up until before I became a father, I was in this like victim mentality where I was like, everything's happening to me, because it literally felt like everything was happening to me, And when it got to this point where I had a conversation with a close friend of mine, when I was like really deep in like the drugs and selling drugs and addictions and all that kind of stuff, and one of my close friends pulled me aside and he said, "You're wasting your life and you need to make a change, and no one's going to do it for you." And he just had that hard conversation that I needed to have, and then he was like angry at me. He was like, "You've got so much potential, but you're wasting it, and you're waiting for everything to happen to you." Or happen for you rather, but you have to be the one to make it happen, which means you have to be the change you want to see. And that's when I just snapped out of it, and I was like, okay, I need to change everything. And my mindset completely shifted. My life didn't change straight away. My life didn't necessarily get easier. There was still many, many challenges I had to face, but I then took back control over my reality from being this like reactive person to just letting life happen and just being this victim of whatever happens to me, to being the active, conscious creator. And that's when I really started to turn my life around. That's when I really kind of reconnected back with my spiritual journey. I was always very spiritual from a young age, because I was raised with that with my mother. But I reconnected with my spiritual journey. I really tapped back into the personal development journey, and then I started really building my world, building my life from there. But it was to answer your question, it was the shift of being the unconscious creator or the reactor victim mindset to being the conscious creator and the world builder.
And that right there is the gold nugget already 10 minutes into this episode, what you've just shared there. And I think people listening at home, it's so easy to look at your own life story and be like, oh, I can't because of this and this and this. And then to have somebody come on and share the real depths of the intensity that you have had to move through to get to where you are today is such an example and testimony to what is truly possible when you flip that switch in your mind. And for so many people, that is the starting point of realizing you can sit in your circumstances. You can sit around and you can blame everybody. And it's not to say you didn't have a hard childhood. It's not to say that all of these things aren't real. They absolutely are. There's no minimizing or bypassing that. But the reality is we all have to reach a stage in our life where we go, yes, and yes, and I get to choose what happens from here out. I'm taking back control of my life. And I'm so curious to know from you, what was your first step out of that? Like, what was the first rung on the ladder? You say that you kind of went back into like your personal development and your spiritual side and all of this, and you really took back that conscious creator from the unconscious. What was the first rung on the ladder that pulled you out?
So the first thing that I did was I had to right my wrongs.
Can we celebrate that for a sec? Because I feel like most people just want to be like, I made a vision board and I
did this manifestation ritual. Nah, I had to right my wrongs. That's what I had to do. Because at that time, I ran away from home when I was 17 and I lived away from home for almost a year. And I lived in a trap house. In street terms, it's like a drug house, basically, where people come and buy drugs and sell drugs. And there was parties there all the time. And I was hanging out with a lot of people that were a lot older than me, that all in that lifestyle. And the reason why I had run away from home is because I wasn't a very, how would I put this? I wasn't a very good kid. I was very rebellious and I made a lot of mistakes and I created a lot of drama for my mom, who was a single mom at the time. And I was just like a little shit, basically. And that's why I ran away from home. My mother actually put a restraining order against me because I had a lot of like emotional issues when I was like anger issues when I was a teenager, and that was one of the reasons why I left. Like I had a bit of a mental breakdown, destroyed a whole bunch of shit in my house, ran away. I've got the scar to prove it. You can see these scars there. That was from like breaking a glass in my house, and I cut my wrist open. Not intentionally, but I cut my wrist open when I punched this window, and blood was splurting everywhere. So I ran away from home, and then my mum put a restraining order against me. So, and then I was away for like almost a year. And that's why I said I was stuck in the victim consciousness, because I literally was blaming her. I was blaming my father. I was blaming everyone else, apart from taking responsibility for myself and my own emotions and how I was treating people around me. So I had to right my wrongs. I had to go back home and I had to apologize and ask for forgiveness. And obviously my mom gave that to me, which I was very grateful for. And then she because I was raised a Christian, but my mum was very what I would call a very open-minded Christian. So she was very spiritual. She was very into esoteric knowledge and all the other things. But we were rooted in Christ, right? So she kind of brought me back to God, and I kind of came back to God. And then from there, she actually, it was quite funny because she introduced me to The Secret. Right? So so I was reading The Secret and the Bible at the same time. And that's where I saw there was so many correlations between the two. A lot of people in the spiritual space think it's The Secret or Law of Attraction is evil or whatnot. Which is a whole conversation within itself, which we could dive into if you want. But yeah, I was reading these two books at the same time. And because I was in a space where I dropped out of high school, I wanted to just start my career and I wanted to do something meaningful. And I had nothing to lose. So anything I was learning, I was just soaking. I was like a sponge. I was just soaking it all up. So The Secret was telling me to visualize what I wanted and affirm it into reality and create into reality. That's what I was doing every single day, every single morning, every single evening. I was just visualizing, creating. I was praying every single day, asking God to help me with everything that I'm building and to guide me on my path. And then literally within a few weeks, I started my coaching certification, which was a personal training and business certification. Within 4 months, I was a fully qualified personal trainer. And then I manifested my dream job working on a cruise ship. And I traveled around the world to 24 countries at the age of 18, all within a space of 6 months.
That's the power. Yeah. That's the power of first righting your wrongs, getting into clean frequency, and then manifesting from there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was literally at the beginning of the year, I was at that dark spot. And then halfway through the year, I was in Europe, traveling around the Mediterranean.
That's how quickly things can change when you take radical responsibility of your life. Everything can shift and change in 6 months or less. Yeah. For anyone at home who's wondering right now, because look, everybody makes mistakes, right? Every single human being, God knows, that's how we learn, is through these mistakes. So I really love this piece that you brought around righting your wrongs. How would you suggest whoever is listening at home right now who knows that they have things that they need to right their wrongs about, because that's a humbling experience, man, to be able to tuck your ego away and really face yourself in the mirror. I'm getting Michael Jackson in my head of starting with the man in the mirror. It takes a really humbling experience to be able to do that. So how would you suggest, or what sort of advice would you give to someone who knows that's their first step right now?
That's a great question. So I feel like it depends what the wrongs are that you got to right. But I think a lot of the wrongs that we have to right in our life is oftentimes between our relationships with friends, family, partners, ex-partners, whatever the case may be, because I feel like one of the biggest spiritual teachers in life is relationships. Family relationships, friendships, and romantic relationships, because that's where all of those are the most intimate connections that we have, which means that's where our true colors shine through. That's where our light comes through. It's where our love is created, but that's also where our shadows come through. And that's where the dark side of us comes out. So I think it's resolving things with the people that you probably screwed over, or forgiving people that screwed you over. And I think that's because ultimately, like the spiritual healing that comes from righting your wrongs is ultimately forgiveness, right? Because you're asking for forgiveness or repenting. Like you're asking for forgiveness from the people that you might have screwed over. So in my case, it was my mom. Like I did caused her a lot of stress and a lot of problems. I had to go back and apologize. And so it's asking for that forgiveness. And sometimes before you can forgive yourself, you have to actually ask for forgiveness from someone else. Otherwise, you're always going to carry that guilt and shame, you know? So
what if they say no? What if they're like, no, I'm not forgiving you?
Well, something that Jesus says in the Bible is it's not necessarily about what they say or not. It's more about your heart. So what you're carrying in your heart. So when you actually truly repent, not like performative repentance, but like because you can tell if someone's being genuine when they apologize.
You can feel it. You can feel it in your body. Your body has a resonance to truth, and your body has a resonance to bullshit. The moment someone's bullshitting you, you can pick it up a mile away.
Exactly. It's like a kid that is just saying sorry because they got found out, right? I've had a few conversations with my son about that. So yeah, it's when you genuinely come to a place of true repentance in your heart for the person that you're seeking repentance from, then it doesn't matter what they say or what they give you. It's more about what you free from yourself. And if they forgive you, then that's just a gift that they give you. And if not, then that's fine. And it's the same with if people have screwed you over, your ability to forgive them. You know, Jesus says in the Bible, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, and forgive those who have wronged you, right? Which is one of the hardest lessons that I've had to learn personally in my life, because there's been so many people that have screwed me over, including like my own father and people that have done so much like dirty shit to me. I've had to learn how to forgive them and love them regardless, which is extremely difficult to do. Intellectually and philosophically, it sounds spiritually correct, but on an actual heart level, it's very difficult to do. But I think ultimately, you know, I know everyone that's listening to this probably has different spiritual and religious belief systems. So whether we call it God or the universe or source, creator, whatever you want to call it. But, you know, for me, it's going to God and saying, I'm sorry for like messing up. And I take responsibility for all of these mistakes that I've made. And please help me to right my wrongs and change these behaviors within myself, so that I don't make these mistakes again. I don't do this again, you know? And I think when you go to the people that you're trying to resolve things with, you go to God or creator with this true repentance in your heart, then you'll always be forgiven.
So I'm hearing that it's not so much that the person you are apologizing to gives you their forgiveness. It's that you've come into right relationship with yourself and you've come into right relationship with God. That's really the magic. Yeah.
Otherwise, you carry the guilt and the shame and the anger from that. And that's like a poison that will stay in you. Yeah.
100% to your body, to your frequency, to everything. That's such a dampener, such a density creator. So that's really important information to bring. And I'm so curious as well when you said, I loved what you shared there around like, yeah, intellectually it sounds like spiritually correct, like love and forgive those who have screwed you over. And then you said it's really difficult to do. And I'm wondering for those at home listening, how do you actually do that? If somebody like, you know, I'm thinking, is it like what's your personal process? Is it like a body-based work that you do? Or how do you really get to that point of that completion in that cycle?
Yeah, I think it's a multifaceted process. Like I've really had to learn this. Like my father, it's quite interesting. I've talked about this on a few different podcasts, but my father is probably one of my biggest ops in life. And what I mean by ops, street term, is like my biggest enemies in life. You know, so when Jesus says, you know, love your enemies, my father's literally been that because he came back into my life. I won't go too deep into the story, but he came back into my life. We had a really strained negative relationship, and there was basically never any repentance on his side. So he never actually ever apologized for anything that he did in my life, but I had to choose to forgive him regardless, right? I've had other people I've had to forgive as well, like people that have literally tried to kill me, you know, like literally put me into hospital, tried to take my life. And there was a part of me deep down where I wanted to go and kill them because I had this deep rage and this like hate and resentment for those people that I wanted to go and kill them. Survival instincts, right? So to answer your question, how do you forgive? What I had to learn with the people that tried to take my life, my father, who was, you know, one of my biggest oppositions in life, was I had to learn how to have compassion and understanding for who they are and why they are the way they are. And that requires us to step outside of our own ego, because our own ego is very opinionated and will hold on to our own perspective and our own belief systems of what we think is right and wrong and justice or injustice. But we can't, if we want to forgive, we can't hold on to our own perspective, because that perspective is always going to be conflicting to the opposing side. So we have to be able to like put our ego down. For me, it's like putting down my pride, putting down my ego, and actually putting myself into the position of those people and really thinking, why would they act that way? Why would they act like this? And for my father, in my father's case, I realized it was because he was also very traumatized, and he had a whole bunch of shit that was passed on to him from his parents, right? Whether he ever gets to heal from that or acknowledge that as his journey. But for me, I had to understand that, and I had to be able to have a compassion towards that, even if there was a part of me that resented him. And when I could let that compassion into my heart, it kind of washed away the resentment, and it allowed me to have this love for him regardless. And it was like not a sympathy, but an empathy, right? It was like, I can feel for him, you know, and I can see myself in him, and I can, and that's one of the most powerful things is when you can see yourself in the person that you're needing to forgive or resolve things with, and you can see God in that person, because that's another thing is God is within all of us, right? So if we're hating someone else, then that means we're hating an aspect of God. So if we really truly love God and love life, then we have to learn how to love our enemies, which is difficult, but it's powerful, because then once we can do that, then we don't stay stuck in this us versus them, you know, divided mentality. We can actually create unity.
So forgiveness actually has nothing to do with you and them. Forgiveness is, I'm hearing here, about coming back into union with oneness and removing the barriers that are there that's stopping that flow of energy between the one. That's so wild. That's such a beautiful perspective. I really love that. So step number one, put yourself into their shoes, get the compassion energy flowing. And it's not going to be easy overnight. It's, you know, you might have to like really practice this for a while, right? And really coming into putting your ego down at the door, putting your identity down at the door, and looking from that person's perspective doesn't mean that you're validating it, doesn't mean that it's okay, doesn't mean that it was the right thing to do. But when you're able to find a level of understanding from the frame of reference that they were operating in, there is like a level of understanding that can then create space for forgiveness of them kind of doing the best that they could with what they had in that moment.
Yeah,
right?
and it's really difficult. I just want to say this because I understand everyone watching, everyone's got different things that they're healing from. And my story may sound bad to some people, or it may sound like nothing to some people, because I know some people go through really, really bad things in life, like horrific things. And like you said, it's not what this conversation is not to condone or justify, because you don't want to justify, especially when evil acts are taking place, because there are evil things. There is like very, very dark, evil shit that happens in this world, and being able to accept the darkest shit in the world is one of the most challenging things on our in our path. And what I mean, not accept, but understand, because you don't have to accept injustice or evil, but you have to be able to understand the part that it plays in this life, you know, because it is like we live in a dualistic universe.
Exactly,
there's light and dark, and there's good and evil, and we have to understand why evil exists in order for us to be able to navigate through this life, and also to be able to deal with that
if and when we need to. Oh, mic drop moment. I really just want to let that land, because what you just shared there is so important, that it's not about accepting and validating it. It's truly just about understanding. And only there can we really make a shift within ourselves, which then makes a shift within the whole. And it's this whole beautiful, magical experience that starts happening. And it's making me curious as well to learn from you. What do you feel that your rock bottom taught you that comfort never could?
Faith. Like what you said before, it's unbreakable faith. And like I said, I used to think I was cursed. Like I literally used to think I was cursed. And it got to this point where, here's the thing I learned about faith. The Bible says, not word for word, but the Bible says something along the lines of faith is the belief in the substance of things unseen. So that basically means we're choosing to believe in something that we can't see, we don't necessarily understand, and we can't prove, which is why there's always like this science versus spirituality like debate that's always been going on, right? Because you can't quantify or prove something that we can't see. Although there's a lot of things that we can't see that we also understand, right? There's a lot of laws of the universe. But when you in order to actually have faith, in order to strengthen a belief in something that you can't see, and if you're choosing to walk a life of faith or a path of faith, then God will put you into seemingly impossible situations for you to choose the faith when everything else around you is telling you, be afraid, right? So when you're at a rock bottom moment, like for me, when I was at some of these lowest points in my life, I'm talking like homeless, I'm talking broke, like minus money in the bank account. And
it's not like you're 100 years old. Like this has all happened in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah. Like when you're going through these things, when like you're in the hospital, where like you've just gone through a massive breakup in life, where you don't know how you're going to pay your bills. Like there's so many different things I could explain, like draw a reference from. But when you're in these moments where when you're in these dark situations, and there is no logical explanation of what to do in that moment. There's nothing you can do, right? There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can say. There's literally nothing that you can do that's going to change the circumstance that you're in. Your entire nervous system is being pulled into fight or flight stress response, right? And yeah, you could do breath work, but it doesn't change or meditate or anything, but it doesn't change the circumstances that you're in immediately. So in that moment, choosing faith, choosing a higher perspective or a higher belief that, no, actually, even though my environment is chaos right now, I don't have to replicate that chaos. I can choose to find peace in the chaos through having faith and belief that everything's going to be okay. And that's the light in the darkness that I feel I'm grateful for all the challenging experiences in my life, because I've had to go through so many of them. It's to the point now, 33, turning 33 this year, it's to the point now where I'm not afraid of anything. Like I won't say that, because there are also going to be things that I will actually be afraid of, but I have a very, like my faith to fear ratio is like this. Like
that's it.
Like there's very little things that can make me afraid, because I've had to go through just such intense shit in my life, So if life happens and I get given a deck of a spread of cards that is very challenging and stressful, and there's a lot of pressure, I know that I can make through it. And one thing that my mum taught me was that God will never give you a challenge or an adversity or a trial or a tribulation without also giving you the power to be able to solve it and get out of it. And that's why we get put into it. And if you look at all the stories in the Bible, all the great people that we think of, like David, Solomon, Moses, Jesus, like all of these people throughout the Bible, they all had to go through such challenging experiences. Like Moses literally took all the Israelites from Egypt to the promised land over the course of 40 years in the desert. And he just had faith in this God that was guiding him across the desert with tens of thousands of people following him, right? So, if guys like that can make it through 40 years, I can make it through a few days of just like stress.
That's it.
And this like pretty chill life we live right now, or modern day world that we live in.
I love what you said there around the faith to fear ratio. That is gangster. I love that. Inside of my world, we call it psychopathic faith. And psychopathic faith is this level of faith where people literally think you're delulu because you have this level of faith that guides you, that walks with you, that lives inside you, that shows you the path. And the actions that you take, when people look at it from the outside, they literally think it's psychopathic. You need to be more realistic. You need to maybe choose something a little bit easier. You need to make the safe choice. But when you have that faith to fear ratio, the safe and realistic choice doesn't turn you on in life. The safe and realistic choice feels like a downgrade to what you know is possible when that level of faith is truly guiding you. And I think what you've said there is so on point, that, and it's the game of life, isn't it? Where you face something and you choose. And this comes all the way back to what you said at the beginning of like actively knowing that you are the creator. You have to choose. Here's a situation that is presenting itself as a challenge, but is it really? And if I truly had the faith, and I'm not talking belief, because I think belief and faith are different concepts. But if I had the level of embodied faith to know that this was going to work out, how would I approach this? I'd approach it like a gangster, because I know that it's going to work out because I got psychopathic motherfucking faith.
I've got a funny story real quick.
Hit it.
About this. You talk about the game of life. I truly do believe that it is a game, because especially when you start utilizing this idea of faith practically every single day, because this is a very practical thing. Like, you're going to get so many challenges and tests in life where you have to choose one or the other. You choose fear and fall into scarcity and doubt and, survival mode, or you choose faith and you operate from that place. And there was this one time back during the COVID lockdown time.
Yeah, remember that?
Yeah, back in 2020. So it's a funny story. I got given, this is when I released my first ever album, right? 2020. And I was on a European tour, traveling around Europe, performing at festivals and concerts and stuff like that, right? This was all during COVID. So New Zealand was in lockdown, if you remember that. We were hard lockdown, and Europe was a little bit open. So I got given this opportunity to fly over to Europe, and then I was traveling around there for a couple months. Now, I don't know if you remember, but back in COVID days, lockdown days, we had to get what is it? We had to go to a quarantine.
Yes.
Remember? So the quarantine. So in order to go to quarantine, I had to go away for 3 months. So I was away from home for 3 months traveling. Now, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm just going to say it. Fuck it, I don't care. So when I was over there, right, we were coming back. There was no, like, if you had a flight going back into New Zealand, that was the one flight that you had. Right. And if you missed it, like, you literally can't book another flight. So there's no other way to get in. And you had to book the quarantine earlier. So it was like this really difficult thing to do. That's why so many people couldn't get back into the country. I ended up catching COVID over there when I was supposed to fly back.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. That's why I said I don't know if I should be saying this. But I don't care.
We're here for it. We love it. Yeah.
So I caught COVID, and I was really bad. I had for like 2 weeks. And I technically shouldn't have been able to get back into the country because I had to fly through 7 airports.
Wow, 7. Interesting.
Oh, wait, 6 airports, sorry. 6 airports and a couple of border checkpoints, all of which you're technically not supposed to be able to get through, right? And I knew all the stuff that we're talking about faith, and I was like, I don't know
Ultimate game.
I don't know how the heck I'm going to get back to you. And I was freaking scared because, like, I was literally on the other side of the world, and I was sick. So I was like, man, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I have faith because I understand everything that we're talking about. I'm just going to. If there's ever a time to do it, this is the time to use it because I got nothing else going for me, and I made it back. I'm not going to say how, but I made it back.
Oh, God, I love this. This is like the literal embodiment. So you made it through 6 airports, multiple checkpoints, total psychopathic faith, and landed back in New Zealand, all good in the hood.
Yeah.
That is the perfect example of exactly this, right? Literally, it's like bending reality around your will of faith to match that. And that's gangster. I love stories like that. I love rebellious ones like that as well. Wow, that's so epic. And it makes me curious as well around, we've spoken a lot about trauma, and we've spoken a lot about the lessons that you've learned inside of that. Do you feel, believe, think that trauma can serve as an initiation into someone's purpose?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I have done a lot of thinking, feeling, learning, meditating, praying, studying on purpose and around the topic of purpose. And my personal belief is that our life that we have, the life path that we're given in life, has specific key experiences that we have to go through that are often traumatic. And these traumatic experiences that we go through are key, pivotal, milestone moments in our spiritual development. And God gives us these specific experiences so that we can go through the trials and the tribulations and the trauma of those experiences to ultimately make it to the other side, even if, and sometimes that doesn't happen for a very long time. That sometimes it's like a life journey to get to the other side. But once we get to the other side of it, we have the lived wisdom, the wisdom that we gain from all of that experience that we can then use as the medicine or the message to fuel the mission that we're actually here for. And again, like if you look at Jesus, right? If you look at the story of Jesus, probably one of the, I'm going to say the most impactful man to walk this planet, right? Impacted billions of people over thousands of years. If you look at his story, he was a man, right? But if you look at his story before he started his ministry, he got first baptized, which was like his initiation. So John the Baptist baptized them, and which is when he actually connected with the Holy Spirit. He connected with God and was anointed through that kind of initiation process. And then after that, he went into, it says in the Bible that the Spirit led him into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights where he fasted and he was tempted and challenged by the devil. So he went into the desert, into the wilderness rather, and he was literally challenged by the devil for 40 days and 40 nights. And the devil was trying to tell him to kill himself and jump off cliffs and trying to get him to like rebuke God and doing all of these things to get in his head to destroy him, basically. But he rose above every single time and ultimately made it out the other side and then went on to do all the works that he did. And that's just one story that I could draw a reference from, but I think it's one of the most impactful stories. So the reason why I share that is because if you look at Jesus, if you look at his story and you look at his wilderness story, then what does that mean for our wilderness story? Because we've all got a wilderness story, right? I
was thinking that, yeah.
So that means that our wilderness story is the same thing. We're getting challenged, we're getting tempted, we're getting all of the worst possible things that could happen to us. But it's a test of strength. It's a test of faith. It's a what I like to call the forge, right? It's forging us because fire, it's coming back to the song. Sometimes we've got to walk through fire. We've got to feel the flames to see the beauty in the struggle when you heal your pain. You have to walk through the fire. You got to feel the flames. You got to, but the fire can either burn you or it could forge you. Like if you put a sword or an iron into the fire, you can forge it into a weapon. And that's what I believe we are. We're getting forged into becoming this strong, powerful being that has all of the resilience that is required to forge that weapon so that we can go out there and be the change and do some epic shit.
That's it. And I think of every single human being that I've met who is making a really big impact on this planet. They all have cooked as fuck life stories where they've had to really choose to embody this and to really walk this. And I'm curious, how do you actually, you personally, what's your personal protocol, I guess, that someone could maybe test out at home for themselves to connect to that faith? Is it, because I know for me, like I feel it when it's almost like I have to like go into my body, into my DNA, into my internal system. And it's like a literal frequency I connect to. It's like a literal feeling that I latch onto and then walk that path on inside myself. And I'm wondering if you have a similar experience or if there's something that you kind of do that someone can try at home.
Like a practice. Yeah, for sure. So I do this every single day, like often multiple times per day. So, I mean, obviously we connected through the breathwork space, right?
Yes.
So
Shout out Hella and Lucas.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been teaching breathwork and meditation for over 10 years now. So breathwork and meditation have been like my staple disciplines
100%.
for a very, very long time. So I use that every single day, but I combine it with prayer. So when for me, the breath work allows me to work on the nervous system level and the emotional level, which I think is a very practical thing for all of us as humans because we're emotional beings and we carry a lot of stress, just part of life that we live in. So when we're carrying all the stress can be a byproduct of the trials and tribulations that we're going through. So if you're going through a traumatic experience, your nervous system is in fight or flight like all the time. Even if you're lying on the couch just trying to chill out, you're still like, triggered. So the breath allows us to regulate ourselves. It allows me personally to be able to relieve, reduce, and regulate all of those stress responses in the body so I can actually get into a calm space so that I can actually access that higher consciousness. Because sometimes it's very difficult to connect to a higher consciousness or spirit or God when you're in this fight or flight mode.
Yeah, that's the first thing you need to deal with.
It's very, very difficult to do. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very difficult to do because when you're in that fight or flight mode, it influences your mind and then you start overthinking. Your thoughts are all over the place. It's very difficult to focus. So for me, the breath work is a staple because I oftentimes have a lot of stress in my life, like just the nature of being an entrepreneur, a father, all these
high-achieving human being.
Yeah, there's always things to be stressed about. So I make that a daily practice, regulate myself, I call it just tapping in. I tap in with the breath work.
Do you have a specific flow? Like, do you like a specific practice that you do with the breath work?
I do. So I've done like all sorts of different breath work, but I usually just do a few rounds just to get myself a few rounds of, to simplify, I'll usually do about 10 to 15 minutes of breath work. So usually 3 to 5 rounds to actually just get into a really, really like calm, activated state. And then when I'm in that state, then what I'll do is I will pray. So for me, I have this is kind of like my thought process around it is praying is speaking to God, meditating is listening. So what I do is I'll pray, and when I'm praying, I always give thanks for everything that I have going on in my life, even if it's challenging. So and oftentimes it is. So if we've got challenging things, I'll always say, thank you, God, for giving me all of these experiences. Thank you for the trials. Thank you for the tribulations. Thank you for the tests. Thank you for the trauma. Thank you for the pain that I've experienced and all of these problems, because I know you've given me these experiences so that I can become fitter, stronger, wiser, and more capable human being to do your work. So I understand. It's why, the prayer that Jesus says is, the Lord's Prayer, where it says, our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, which means like whatever's happening here on earth is your will. You're letting me do it. So just like, thank you for that. Even if it's challenging, even if I don't like it, thank you. And then that gets me out of the victim mindset, right? And then the next part of that prayer, which is give us this day our daily bread, which for me is like, give me the daily bread, give me the wisdom, give me the guidance, give me the knowledge, give me the steps to take today. Lead us from temptation and deliver us from evil, which is like lead me away from the temptation to fall into negative thinking, procrastination, anything that's going to try and take me off my path, which oftentimes it is, especially when you're doing big purpose-driven things. There will be the quote-unquote devil in your life that will try and take you off that path. Deliver us from evil through the kingdom, the power, and the glory. And then I'll just ask for blessings, protection, and provision over myself and my family, my business, my home, my clients, my community, so that we're all covered in the power of the Spirit. And then I will seek guidance and what I call mission coordinates. So I say,
I love that.
because I see like myself as like a general and God is like the leader. So God's like giving me the coordinates so that I can just do my thing and lead my mission. And then I'll say, give me the coordinates, establish my steps, and then I'll just be silent. And then I'll be silent for however long I need to be there. And sometimes I'll be there for 5 minutes. Sometimes I'll be there for an hour. It really depends. Like I was literally a couple of days ago, I was in there for like 90 minutes, just like receiving everything. There's a lot of coordinates and there was just a lot of stuff that I had to work through. And sometimes it's coordinates. Sometimes it's like, no, you got to work through this, this, and this. And like the other day, it was like I got taken through a whole like therapy shadow work session. Like God was like taking me through this whole therapy shadow work session, taking me back to all these different parts of my life that was affecting my current reality. And I had to go through this whole like timeline therapy, you know, and but then sometimes it's like, I want you to go create this song, or I want you to go launch this project, or I want you to go speak to this client because this client has a connection to someone else that you need to connect with. Or sometimes there'll be a collaboration that comes through. It's always different. But I think for me, it's like the breath work to get into, to tap in, the prayer to like, you know, honor and give reverence to my creator, and then receiving. And then most importantly, after receiving, listening. And actually doing it.
Yes, taking the action, right?
Which is what I call like being obedient, you know, actually following through, which sometimes I've been challenged with. Sometimes I'll get the download, but I won't do it. So actually following, and I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, is like they'll get all this inspiration, but then when it comes to taking action and executing, they struggle with it.
Why do you think that is? What's the number one reason why people struggle?
I think a lot of the time the reason why people struggle is because they don't have it depends where they're getting the inspiration from. But, you know, in my case, the reason why was because we oftentimes have like the lack of belief in ourselves to be able to actually follow through on it, or a lack of confidence in ourselves to be able to follow through on it. So I get this all the time. You'll probably get this with like working with clients in the entrepreneurial space. So many people have like all these like wild, amazing, beautiful visions and ideas. But then when it comes to actually, you know, filming a video and posting it on social media, or like putting together an offer and launching it, or, you know, doing a sales call, or like whatever the simple thing is, we get this like blockage. And then often that blockage comes from a lot of the stuff that we actually have to work through, which is like our own internal blockages, fears, limiting beliefs that block us and sabotage us from actually doing it. And that's part of the journey as well. That's part of the work, is like overcoming all of that so that we can really fully step into it.
Yes. Yet again, having psychopathic faith in yourself and your vision and your mission, and know that nothing that is on your heart is an accident, especially when it's delivered in such clean purity like that from God, universe, spirit, source in direct conversation. Like that's not there by accident. That's there because it's yours to follow. But you have to be brave enough in your human life to choose yes. To choose yes. And I think that's such an important thing for people to really remember. And for you, this whole, because I'm just feeling so inspired listening to, obviously we've spoken briefly, you know, before. I've actually been following you since those COVID days. And like hearing so much more of your story is such an inspiring thing for people, because I think purpose, trauma, initiation, all of these things, what do you think, what is your personal mission? And how has your trauma initiated you into doing that now?
So I believe for myself personally, my mission at this current stage of my life, because I think our mission changes and evolves and shifts as we continue to grow. I think the purpose remains the same, but the mission coordinates change. So for me, ever since I started, like all the way back when I moved back home and resolved things with my mom and became a personal trainer when I was 19, the purpose was to help other people. Right? Because I needed help, and then I got it, and I wanted to be able to pass it on. It was simple as that. And at the time, it was helping people change their, become disciplined, change their mindset, build their body, build good habits. And to me, that was helping people. And it was genuinely like changing people's lives. And then that purpose evolved as I evolved. So as I continued to evolve, as I continued to go through all of the hero's journey of life, the purpose stayed the same, but the mission expanded and grew and built. And now it's still the same. But for myself personally, what I feel is really, really important, and this is kind of becoming, I'll speak into some like prophetic stuff. My mother shared with me when I was younger Because my mother had the gift of prophecy. So she used to paint these paintings, right? These big prophetic biblical paintings. And they're beautiful and scary at the same time. And I was like this 10-year-old kid, and I was like, Mom, I don't want to hear about this stuff. This is too intense.
Wow.
I'm just trying to play PlayStation. But she did this one painting, and it was this painting of this big just what's the word? Apocalyptic dystopian type world. It was like a wasteland. And I was in a suit of armor on a mountain holding a spear, holding a flag. And down on the ground, there was this big line of people wearing red cloaks walking away from a burning city. And there were two figures leading this big, thousands and thousands of people, one in a white cloak and one in a red cloak. And she called them the Antichrist and the false prophet. And she explained to me that, and this is biblical prophecy, she explained that there's going to be in the end times or in the future, and she said this was going to happen in my lifetime. She said that there's going to be a time where the world falls into chaos, where the powers that be are going to create wars and division and fear and all of these different things to control humanity. And then they're going to use spirituality and Christianity to basically create a false light to control the masses, right? And basically lead them into destruction. And that prophecy, there's all different conspiracies that pop out of that same prophecy that she talked about. But coming back to your question, my mum told me that there were going to be the 144,000 people on this planet that were going to basically go the other way and bring light to the world. And it was almost like a spiritual war, basically. And she said this is where I got my company name Light Warrior from, because she said that they were going to be called the Warriors of Light. Right? And that's why I was on the mountain with the flagpole and holding the flag.
That makes so much sense.
So I, again, when I was 10 years old, I was like, Mom, I do not want to hear this. This is super intense.
Oh my God, that was when you were 10.
I was literally 10.
Oh my God.
And I was like, yeah, I don't want to hear this. But it instilled this belief in my mind that I was destined for something. And I didn't know what that meant. And I'm not saying this from an egotistical, I'm some chosen one savior, coming to save the day. But I had this belief that my mom gave me for a very long time. Now, as we got into the last 5-10 years, specifically at the beginning of 2019, 2020, before COVID happened, I had a vision in a medicine journey, right? And this vision was of the years 2020 to 2030. And I saw in this vision that there was going to be a whole lot of shit that happens in the world. And there was going to be riots and political injustice and wars and corruption and all of these different things that were going to play out in the world, which coincidentally, a year later started happening, right? COVID happened literally a few months after I had that vision. And then the world was in fear. And it's still happening now. You turn on the news now, you see it all over the place.
It's all over.
Wars, false light, false Christianity everywhere. Look at all the stuff that's happening in the USA, and we could go deep down that rabbit hole. But when I look at all of that, that is when I'm looking at all of this from a higher consciousness perspective, there's all this darkness in the world, right? There's all this dark energy in the world, and the dark energy is what brings society into this or humanity into this place of fear, right? We're literally in fear. And there's a book, I don't know if you read it, called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill.
Yes, yeah.
So that book, Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich, is interviewing the devil, and he asks the devil, how do you control the world? Because the devil is supposed to be the prince of this world, right? And he says, how do you control the world? And the devil says to him, I can control people through their fear.
Yeah.
And I control people for bringing them into fear, because when they're in a fearful state, they don't have faith. And when they don't have faith, they don't believe in God. And when they don't believe in God, they're going to doubt, and they become like leaves in the wind blowing around everywhere.
That's exactly.
And when he specifically calls them drifters. So I turn the world into drifters, basically meaning that they can control you. Comes back to the other thing that you said before, like when it comes to like if we get a mission to do something or a vision to create something and we try and go for it, we try and do it, there's that little part of us that's like, oh, no, I'm not good enough, or I can't do it.
People are going to judge me.
Yeah, people
are going to think I'm cringe.
And it all comes back to that same thing, fear. It's all fear. So, and this spreads across the world in so many different ways, but I think, again, zooming out from a higher consciousness perspective, fear is what controls a large amount of humanity. And if we're to talk about light versus dark, that's what I see darkness as in the world. And that's what creates a lot of the problems. So when we're in fear, that's why we create wars in countries. That's why we feel the need to go and attack someone. That's why there's wars in the streets. That's why there's wars in our households between relationships. And we're at war with ourselves a lot of the time because we don't have that love and connection with ourselves or the people around us. So I think that darkness, if you want to call it that, is everywhere. And I know this because I've lived it, I've breathed it, I've been through all of that darkness and I've been able to come out the other side of it. So, and that's how I found the quote unquote light, which is what I believe is like the love and the light of God and the Creator that exists within us, that we can shine out through what we do. So coming back to your question about mission, I believe that my mission on a higher level is to be the embodiment of that light and love through everything that I do, but specifically to help other people find that within themselves. Yes. Because if we can help people find that true love and light and connection to the Creator and to themselves, then they become a vessel for that light. And then we can I see us all as like these pillars of light, and we bring this light down and then we express it through our different ways. And the way that we express that light energy can be done through many different things. It can be done through words, because we express our words through like what we're doing right now, speaking and having conversations, especially in this modern world of like podcasts and social media and technologies. We get the opportunity to build platforms and speak and create. We can make music, poetry, like what I do. We can build businesses and brands and products and projects that are infused with this light energy. We can build communities and movements, and we can utilize that light, which is what I believe higher frequency creativity is. We're taking this higher frequency creativity and we're channeling that creative energy into building worlds. And when we build our own worlds, and that's why I call my company World Builders, is because when we can build our own world, which has all sorts of different elements in it, businesses, brands, projects, products, and it's infused with that energy, then the world that we build impacts the greater world, and it creates that ripple effect. And that's how we can impact and influence our communities, our culture, and also the collective consciousness.
Oh my God, yes. Everything you've just said. And it makes me curious about the people who are going to be listening to this podcast, and the people in both you and I worlds are people who have missions on their heart. They have things that they know they're here to do. And everything you've just said is so applicable to them. And I'm curious to know from you what you're like looking back at the way that you've built what you've built, because you've done incredible in building what you've built. Like you've grown massively, and you are doing so many incredible things in this world, and truly impacting people. What is your number one piece of advice for somebody right now who's sitting at home listening to this going, man, that's cool. I feel a resonance with that. I know I'm here to do this, but I feel too cringe or whatever it is that comes up. Like, what's the number one thing that they can do to get to this level of impact in a true way?
Are we speaking to entrepreneurs or creators that are already on the path, or people that might be curious about starting?
Both and all. I mean, majority of my audience is people who are already on the path.
Okay.
But I also know there's people who aren't yet on the path but have a little psychopathic desire, a little kink in them that they're like, I'm ready for this.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Well, what I feel is, and this is kind of some of the stuff that I teach my clients when we go through like our coaching programs and stuff, is coming back to what we talked about before about purpose. I feel our purpose comes from our story. So our story through life, which is our hero's journey that's brought us to the moment that we're at today. So everyone that's listening to this, the person that you are today is a byproduct of the story that you've had to go through in life. And that story, with all its highs and lows and trials and tribulations, was gifted and given to you for a specific reason. And the magic in the story is down to you to actually go into finding and extracting the wisdom and the purpose out of it. So we have to look at our story and we have to be like, okay, why did I go through this? Like, what's the lesson here? For me, all these conversations that we're having today that I'm assuming going to go and impact all the people watching this video right now, it happened when I was like 5 to 10 to 15 years of age, you know? So I had to, and that's how I can confidently speak about this and share this wisdom, is because I've been through it. So I think first it's looking at taking a bird's eye view look at your life and asking the question, why did I go through all of this? Like, what was the purpose behind all of it? And then what did I learn from it? And how could I use the wisdom that I've learned or am currently learning from this now to do something impactful? Because there's always something that there's always a level of contribution that you can give back. You know, it's like you got to go through the initiation of learning the stuff to then become, to graduate into the level of being able to pass it back on and to share it and to contribute back, right? So I think that's the first thing. And then from there, it's about, and this is a huge one, it's about recognizing that, okay, it's one thing to conceptualize or fantasize about a purpose, but it's another thing to actually fully step into it and embody it. It's a whole different thing. And
it's an initiation.
It is an initiation. And there's an identity shift that has to take place where, and that's the initiation part. Because initiation, for those that aren't familiar, because we use that word a lot, but a lot of the time people don't know what it means. Like, initiation is a rite of passage, which means that, like, I like to use this example in a lot of indigenous cultures, including the Maori culture. When a boy is becoming a man at the age of 13 is like generally the rite of passage age, which is funny because my son's literally turned 13 a couple months ago, like last month. So he's going through his rite of passage right now and I'm guiding him through it.
Are you going to like take him out into the wild? For
yeah.
Yeah,
cool. I actually am.
Cool.
Yeah. So the vision quest, right?
Yes.
So when we're looking at like a lot of indigenous cultures, the boy would have to go out. So they were raised from 0 to 13 in the tribe with their parents in this kind of safe, secure environment. When they go through their rite of passage, they then have to go out into the wilderness. Again, there's the wilderness again, on their own oftentimes. In some cultures, they even have plant medicine in play, you know, as well. So they all have to take some sort of medicine. So they get put into this elevated state of consciousness, or rather spiritually open state of consciousness, and then go out into the world and the wilderness and survive. And I've gone through this myself personally, not when I was 13. I had to go through it when I was a little bit older, but I went through similar experiences, and it's been a huge part of my spiritual journey is going on these like these spiritual quests.
Yes, yeah, so important.
And when you go on these quests, that's when the faith is really activated, because I'm going to ring in my ear. It's when the faith is really activated because you're literally just out there with you and God and nothing else. So when you're going out into the wilderness through the rite of passage, and this is all metaphorical, by the way, and literal. So literally, but also metaphorically to everyone listening in their lives, especially when you're going into building a business or a brand or a career or something like that. And this also goes for entrepreneurs that are already in business right now that are building a product or a project or about to launch an event or a retreat
like the
or
next
program.
level.
They're about to do something big. That's also a rite of passage. I say to all my clients, every single launch that you do is a rite of passage, because when you go out into the wilderness, all of the fears will come up. All of the doubts will come up. Going back to the Jesus story, the devil will show himself and will try and take you off the path. Like 100% is going to happen. And when that happens, you have to be able to shift into that next level that is able to handle that. and walk that path and keep walking it, which means you got to let go of the fear, and you got to let go of all the belief systems of I can't do this. I'm going to go back to the village where it's safe. And the metaphorical village in our lives is just back to our comfort zone, or back to the old identity. You know, and that's where a lot of people, like, I see this all the time. Like, people, I'll have a conversation with someone, they're like, I want to do this, this, and that. I'm like, cool. And then they stay there for like 5-10 years, and then they just stay there until they finally are ready to actually pass the initiation. But that's something that is required. It requires actually passing it. But then when you go through that initiation, when you go through that rite of passage, you shed all those layers of the old self, and then you actually fully commit to the new version of yourself and everything that is required from you after that. That's where you can actually shift into that new level of your life. But it requires commitment, and it requires the obedience, is that word again, to follow through consistently and not go back. Because if you go back, then you're just going to loop back around.
100%. And that's where so many people get stuck, right? And I love your analogy of the village and of the wilderness. I talk about it as like being on the bench or off the bench. And so many people spend their lives on the bench, thinking about something, planning it, mapping it out, waiting for it to align, waiting for better timing, waiting for better circumstances. They're on the bench, you know, they're looking at the players on the field, whatever they're doing, and they're just thinking about it. But you can't do shit in your life until you get your butt off the bench. That's the only place that the world can actually respond to you and things can start moving. And I think a lot of people, especially in today's day and age where we live in a society that's somewhat addicted to comfort. We live in a society that somewhat glamorizes convenience and comfort and the ease of living and all of this. And it can become such a dangerous thing to someone who is mission-driven and purpose-driven to exist in a world where that is more the thing that's celebrated. And it's so important for people who are mission-driven to surround themselves with an elite hype squad that gets it, that's going to not just be like, you're amazing, but also be like, that's great. And also like, let's go higher, let's go more. Like, tell me what you want, let's 10x it. And it's so freaking important, right? And I just love what you said around the like really stepping into that rite of passage. I think it's so important. What do you think, just like segueing on this for a sec, because I know that this is a big topic in today's day and age, especially for creators and entrepreneurs and people in business. What are your thoughts on AI?
Oh, good conversation.
Let's go.
Yeah, good conversation. So I have been using AI personally for like 7+ years.
Oh, wow. You're like an OG AI user.
So before ChatGPT was around, I've been using it, studying it, implementing it in my business.
I didn't even know it was that old. Wow.
Yeah, it's been around for a while. But specifically over these last like 3-4 years, it's really like obviously evolved, and now it's evolving at a very, very rapid space. So it's a very interesting conversation, and whenever I talk about it, I get two camps of people. I get the pro AI, like AI, what I call the AI religious people, who are like, AI has become their religion and they're like worship AI, and then you get the anti-AIers who are like, oh, it's evil, blah 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 blah. So here's my thoughts on AI. AI is like any technological advancement. It is a tool. In this case, a very intelligent tool that, when used correctly, can help in many areas of your life and help you achieve a lot of success, a lot of automation, a lot of progress. And now, because AI is rapidly evolving so quickly, there's so many things that you could do with AI these days. You know, so I say to people all the time, like, back when I started, like, because I started online coaching in 2016, back when no one was doing it. Like, it wasn't a thing. Like, I was one of a handful of online fitness coaches in the country. So no one even knew what it was back then. This is back before TikTok, back before Instagram Reels. This is like classic, just put up a post on Facebook, Facebook community groups, like all that stuff. So when you're looking at AI, right, you can utilize it in many different ways. Like back when I was first starting, back in like 2016 or so, like, in order to build a website or a funnel or anything, it would take weeks and weeks and weeks. You would have to spend tens of thousands of dollars on developers to get an app made. You would have to spend years building an app out. To build a coaching program or a course, like, I used to sit down and
time intensive.
Type it.
Yes.
I would and to even film videos. I remember filming videos back in the day and writing the subtitles.
Oh my God.
I would spend a whole day just writing subtitles for a 1-minute video.
Wow.
Now you can just press a button and it does it for you, and that's just normal now. So the speed and your ability to create and build and execute and launch something is instantaneous these days. Like if you wanted to, anyone listening to this right now, I just want to just explain what people can do is if you have an idea of an app, a website, a product, a course, a book, a movie, a channel, a platform, you could literally have something built and launched today if you know how to utilize AI. So the opportunities that it's opening up is massive, and it's leveled the playing field because anyone can create an app, a website, a book.
You don't have to be tech savvy anymore.
No, I mean you have to learn how to do it, but it's so much easier than what it used to be. Like so much easier, and it's only getting better and better and better. Same for content creation, like the ability to create content. Like you can create literal movies nowadays, like music videos, movies, cartoons, anime series. What I tell people is if you can conceive it in your mind, you can build it in reality now. And it's very easy to do so. So that should excite people. For people that are purpose-driven, that should excite people because it's like, okay, I've got all these tools at my disposal. Nothing is like I can do anything that I want. What am I going to do with it? Right? Now, here's the negative side of it. And there's a whole lot of negatives as well. So we could talk about environmental negatives and all that kind of stuff, but I want to talk more about the conscious negative. So the negative aspects of AI on our consciousness, I think, is something that a lot of people aren't seeing. And what I'm seeing, and I'm even seeing like a lot of kind of big influences in the spiritual space kind of shifting in this direction, which is kind of like using AI. And I did a post about this the other day, where AI is becoming people's God. And what I mean by that is, like for me personally, and I fell into this slightly and I had to pull myself out of it real quick, is for me, if I have a problem in life, I go to God. Like I pray about it, I'll meditate on it, and I'll sit with it, and I'll just sit there as long as I need, and I'll let God show the way. Business plans, God. Content ideas, God. Right? So I'm just going straight to the source of creative inspiration. Now, what do most people do these days?
They go straight to chat.
They go straight to ChatGPT or Claude.
So true.
So what that does, like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't use ChatGPT and Claude. Like, you can use it. I use it all the time, market research, and I've got some pretty cool ways on how to use both so that you can keep the connection with God, but then use...
Watch the space for Jesse's AI coming out.
Yeah, I've actually already got one. But,
there you go.
Yeah, I've got one. There you go. But what I'm trying to say is what it does over time when you prioritize AI to replace things like problem solving and creativity as well, which is a lot of like, and you see this a lot these days. Like, so like I would say, I think I saw a statistic the other day that it's up to 80% of content on social media now is got some form of AI influence in it, which is crazy to me. Because I remember before AI came out, it was just like, I got to write my own content.
Yes, 100%. Straight in the notes app, like, let's roll.
Yeah, and I just got to figure out what to say and say it. But nowadays, you can get any script generated just like that, which is good for people that don't really have that, like, creative genius activated fully. But at the same time, it's making people less creative and it's making people less intelligent.
Yes, and more dependent.
And it's called, I think they call it cognitive atrophy, where there's like in creative and cognitive atrophy, where there's parts of the creative brain and the cognitive parts of our brain that are associated with problem solving and critical thinking that is actually getting dumber and weaker. And I actually noticed this within myself. I'll give a practical example that a lot of people will probably relate to. When I started doing I got into using like Claude for a lot of my content strategies, right? So I started to create these big content campaigns and it was really great. Like I was getting all this content created and, you know, even you can get like real customized with it and you can do it in your voice and you can make it sound like you and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's still artificial. It's still not true, authentic expression. It's an artificially designed, created script that you're generating, right? So what this is doing is it's taking the soul essence out of creativity and creative expression. And that's why all the content that we're seeing these days, and even human beings are becoming more soulless and artificial. And what I like to call the rise of the clones, especially on social media. This is a really important message for all the creators out there. Like literally, if you go on social media and you scroll for like 5-10 minutes, you're gonna see clones. And what I mean by that is because AI is is an open source intelligence, right? Which means everyone has access to the same source. And that means that you can put in an original idea, but it's going to give you an artificially packaged version of that that's going to sound a specific way. So the sequence, the word, the sentence structures, the way it explains things, it's just going to be scripted in a certain way. And what everyone ends up doing is they end up taking those things and using that as their content, right? Now, when you're building a personal brand on social media and you're creating content, but you're using AI to create the content, it's not actually you, even if it's an idea that you had, right? And I'm speaking from my own personal experience as well. Like I've done this, but it's still not actually you. So you can say the right words, and you can say and you can even put energy and enthusiasm and intention into what you're saying, but at the end of the day, it didn't come from you. It didn't come from source. It came from this artificial intelligence prompt, and it's generated based off your input. So what that does is it actually disconnects us from the true source of creative inspiration, and it blocks it. So what happens, and what happened to me is, I remember I used to do all these videos, like I still do them, but I remember I was doing videos and I would go out into the forest, right? This is one of the content series that blew up my brand. I'll go out into the forest, I'll take my dog for a run, and then I'll just pray and I'll be talking to God, and then I always just like ask, what's the message that you want me to share with my audience today? And then I'll just wait for it. And then it'll come, and then I'll pull out my phone and then I'll say it. And then that's my content done. That's all it was, like one post a day, maybe once every other day. And because it was so intentional with why I was doing it, I wasn't just doing it to like hack algorithms. I wasn't doing it just to get likes and clicks. I was genuinely asking God, give me the message that you want me to share with my audience that's going to empower, impact them, and activate them today.
That's it.
That's it. I'm not even trying to sell anything. I'm just like, what's the message? And those posts would always go viral because people can feel the energetics behind it. Because there's that quote that we say, energy speaks louder than words, and it does. And that's why when you scroll through social media these days, everything feels fake and robotic because the energy's not there. Because
a lot of it is fake and robotic.
Yeah, exactly. Because and it is scripted and performative and all this kind of stuff.
100%.
So that's why, a big thing that I'm focusing on with my clients at the moment is becoming the thought leader through activating your voice and strengthening your creative channel to source. Because a thought leader is different to a clone, because a clone will just replicate whatever and say whatever it's told. Just like you're reading a script, right? A thought leader has the ability to lead through independent thought, which means you have the ability to think for yourself and come up with your own perspectives and your own ideas on things that are happening in the world, things that are happening in your industry, in your niche, in your market, whatever, and be able to use your voice to actually communicate your idea in a way that is intentional and impactful on the people that your audience that you're trying to speak to.
Yes.
And that's why I always say, like, a lot of people want to be influencers, but a lot of people aren't ready to become truly influential.
Yes. Gold nugget right there. So true. Hey, like that person of influence. And it's interesting to me because when we really look at it, right, a lot of these online brands fall flat quite quickly because you can say the right thing through AI. Like AI can put together the perfect thing to say. But then if you use that thing or you use whatever AI has given you to say something to get people into your world, but the embodiment isn't there, it's false. It's like that false light thing almost again. And again, I'm not demonizing AI. Like I'm very behind the curve with AI. Like I'm only just learning about the intricacies of it now. And I'm not at all villainizing it. But you can feel it a mile away because the resonance isn't there. And this is why a lot of online brands will get to the point where it's almost like I've got a client right now I'm working with who's on a 30-day AI cleanse. He's on a 30-day AI fast because he's relied on outsourcing exactly that. And it's not out of a negative way. It's, he wants to refine it. He wants to make it sound better. But instead, what we're really teaching him is how to make it sound better from him by connecting to his voice. Exactly that, activating his own voice. Because especially when you are a purpose-driven creator, that's your number one tool is your voice, and unlocking that creative channel is the how. So what would you say the number one tip for someone to start activating their voice today would be?
This is actually something I train with my clients a lot. So what I do with all of my clients that come through my programs is we do a voice activation challenge, which is basically, and this is specifically for content creation because it's a very practical thing that you can do, is we use a combination of different tools and modalities. Breathwork is one of them. To get yourself into that state. Because when you do breath work, you tap into the alpha brainwave frequency, right? So when you're in that alpha state, which is for those who don't know, it's a very slower brainwave. It's almost like a meditative state, which is when you tap into what we call the flow state. So flow state and flow state psychology, it's basically it's basically a state of consciousness where there are certain parts of your brain that are associated with critique, self-criticism that actually downregulate and switch off.
Yes, the default mode network.
Yeah, which is basically where you stop overthinking and you stop criticizing yourself, which is what most people do.
Yeah, okay, breathwork is the magic pill.
Yeah, because people turn on the camera and then they're like, oh, I look bad or it sounds weird, and that's the biggest thing that you have to train yourself on a nervous system and a psychological level to actually switch out of that. And that's what I've had to learn as a speaker, but also as a musician and a dancer as well, is you have to be able to tap into that flow state, which is what we can do through the breath work. Now, once you get into that flow state, it's one thing to access that state, but it's hard to sustain it. So that's where actually training the voice comes into play. Now, what I've learned about speaking, because I started professionally speaking when I worked on the cruise ship. Funny, interesting, quick little side story is when I was on the cruise ship, part of that business model was running seminars. So I was trained at 19 to run 90-minute seminars and sell from stage at 19, which is crazy. I didn't realize how cool it was when I was there.
Yeah.
But then when
looking back,
I'm like, wow, that was so good. Because that's one of the most valuable skills. So what I've learned, so when you get into that flow state, right, understanding, I have a framework that I follow. So getting into the flow state is one thing. That's a practical thing that we do before we start speaking. That's what I do every single time. So we do the breath work, and this can be done over a 5-minute practice, or it can be done literally within a minute. So
condensed it.
So sometimes you can do it what I do with my clients is we'll do a 5-minute practice. So with a bit of breath work, there'll be a little bit of a guided visualization that we do. And then there is a spoken intention that we say out loud to create an auto-suggestion in the brain, which will direct the flow state, right? Because I see creativity as an energy that we have to direct, and it's directed through intention. So if we say, my intention today is to speak a message that's going to impact my community to help them feel inspired to achieve their business goals. As an example, I'm just making it up. Then that's the direction that my creativity is now flowing in. And now I can say what I feel like I need to say from that. Now, the next stage from that is expressing your thoughts and your feelings out loud. Because when you direct creativity through intention, you're going to get a little bit of inspiration come through. Generally what happens after you set an intention, you'll get a following thought that will come through. Oh, I could talk about this, or I could talk about that, or this topic is interesting. So we get the idea, but translating the idea into speech is the hardest thing for people. So that what we have to learn to do is just speak and just let it out. So this is part of activating the voice, is just actually expressing how you feel and what you're thinking without judgment. So what I get people to do is I get people to turn on a camera or a microphone, so a voice recorder or a camera, and I get them to just speak for a time limit. So it could be 3 to 5 minutes. I like to do a little bit longer so they're not feeling pressured by the time clock or anything. So 3 to 5 minutes, just say what you want to say. And then I always say it's okay if you mess up. You want to be able to be okay with messing up. Because messing up, what is messing up? Messing up is just not knowing what to say or stuttering or something. So if you stutter, if you don't know what to say, if you say if you have to stop, if you have to pause, I've done it multiple times in this podcast. Like I've just like forget what I'm saying.
He's so in flow state.
yeah. But you have to be able to just like be okay with that.
Yeah.
And just let it flow. And if you need to pause, take a pause, come back to it, and just keep expressing yourself. Because when you allow yourself to actually truly express yourself, especially around topics that you're actually passionate about, because what you'll find is most people are really passionate about things, which means they've got a lot to say about it, but they're just afraid to share what they're saying. So let it all out. Once the timer finishes, you finish it, and then you move on with your day, right? And you just keep doing that. Now, once you do that, what happens, and that's why we do it over the 30-day challenge, because once you do it at first, then at first you'll feel, oh, that was difficult. It was hard. I felt cringe. I didn't like doing that. I don't want to do it again. But if you just keep doing it, then what happens? It's like training a muscle. It gets stronger. It gets stronger. It gets stronger. And then eventually, there's a threshold moment that I always see with myself and with my clients, which is when you shift from blocked and resistant and like hesitant, and then you shift into open channel. And then when you shift into this open channel, you literally are constantly getting creative ideas because you feel excited and inspired to share them, that you get more of them, right? So then the next time you do your video, it's like, oh, I've got this thing to say now. And then you can just let it out. And then you just keep doing it. You keep doing it over and over and over again. And eventually it gets to the point by the end of the 30 days that people can just freely speak and communicate what they want to communicate on without doubt or hesitation or feeling blocked or whatever the case may be. And the way that we do it is over the 30 days, we have different topics. So we have like a structure. We've got direction that we give them. We give them topics to talk about so that they've got, actual thing. They're not just like ranting about random things. They've got specific things, and we've designed it in a way where the challenge is catered towards their brand. So they're speaking on like very powerful topics that's going to help them do that. And I think in today's day and age, if I always say to people, if you can get out your phone and communicate your thoughts and ideas authentically without having to go to outsource any of that process, it's one of the most valuable skills that you can do, because that one skill can help millions of people at a click of a button, and it can also make you millions of dollars. Because you like, if you put out that content, if you put out your voice, you put out your message, you're going to attract people. Like people are going to see you, they're going to hear you,
they're going to resonate,
they're going to connect with you, and there's the I call this metaphysical marketing. There's like the metaphysical aspect of the marketing side of it, which is where people resonate when you're authentically expressing your voice in this way, and you're channeling this message from with this higher intention and this higher purpose to create impact, then you attract and magnetize people that are energetically seeking that frequency.
Yes.
Right? So people will attract and magnetize towards it. And I don't know how this works, but it has an influence on the algorithms on social media. I don't know how, but it does. And the algorithms will actually bring people to you that need to see that message. The amount of times I get people are like, I don't even know who you are and how I ended up on this call, but I saw one of your videos and something said something to me, and now here I am, I'm joining the program.
Those are the best people I like. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll even get people say like, this video that you sent was an answer to prayer. Which means they were praying for it. And what's crazy is I was praying for it on the other side. I was like, God, give me the message to share to the people who need to hear it. And they're asking for, God, give me a message and a sign to help me in my life.
Ding! Alignment. Oh my gosh. That was such a potent give. Thank you so much. I hope everybody rewinds that and listens and writes every single aspect of that down, because you really touched on both the inner work of that, and as well as the opening of the channel, as well as in the actual like practical, actionable steps that people need to make. I'm going to hit you with 2 quick fires. Are you ready?
Yep.
Quick fires. Okay. Feeling into which one I want to ask first. Why are people spiritually starved right now?
I think people are spiritually starved because there's a lot of false light in this world that has created a false spirituality.
That's it.
And this is across the board, across all religions, across all spiritual thought systems. I believe that there's one God, there's one creator, there's one source creator of this entire universe. And humans and God, we're on different levels of consciousness, different dimensional planes of existence, right? Down here in the earthly realm, we have egos. And our human ego is built up on our belief systems and our traumas and our shadows. And like, this is what creates our psychological construct that we call the ego, right? When a human being with an ego and a shadow, which we all have, finds a spiritual belief system to believe in, whether it's New Age, Christianity, Islam, whatever, the ego also is built around that. Okay. And when we build this, and this is what we call spiritual ego. So when we build this spiritual ego, our identity becomes attached to the belief system. And oftentimes that belief system can actually disconnect us from the actual source of what we're connected to, right? Which is why if you look in the spiritual world right now, like whenever I look at spirituality online or Christianity or whatever, all I see is people debating about what's right and wrong. And this has been something that's been happening for thousands of years. It's like, what's right, what's wrong? No, this interpretation of Christianity is right. No, this interpretation, this is what Jesus meant here, or this is what he really meant. This is evil, this is good. Now, don't get me wrong, I do think that there is right and wrong. I do think there is good and evil and light and dark. But what I believe the devil, if you want to call it that, or the negative polarity does is creates division.
Of course.
And if the people who are spiritually inclined or religiously inclined, the people that are seeking truth, seeking love, seeking connection to God, the creator, of course the devil's going to try and get to those people and confuse them, which is why there's so much confusion in the world and spirituality and in religion. That's why you see people going from Christianity to New Age, see people from New Age going to Christianity, whatever the case may be. Now, I'm not going to say what's necessarily right and wrong here, because I think that's a big conversation of like where we start going into like theological and philosophical debates around what even is right and wrong and how do we come to the conclusions that this is true and this is false. What do we base
this on?
Because anyone can say, oh, this was said in the Bible and this is what it means. But at the end, what I've learned, and this is something I learned from a very young age because my mum taught me to always question everything. And because I grew up with religious trauma, right? So I had a deep connection with God and with Jesus, but I had a religious trauma that made me stop trusting religious people. And because I had that experience, it gave me the gift of discernment to be able to see, okay, I can see where, like even now, I go to church now every Sunday. And when I go to church, I can see when God's speaking through people and I can see when the ego is speaking through. And they can sometimes happen simultaneously. Because again, the ego is based off opinions and it's the opinions that creates the interpretation of what they're actually expressing. So what I've learned is that any spiritual belief system, and this goes even, and this is why I always say to people, question all your teachers and question all your gurus or whoever you look up to, because at the end of the day, everyone's just a human being, no matter how enlightened they appear to be. They're all a human being. They all have an ego and they all have a shadow self, right? Which is why I don't trust, or I don't say I don't trust, but I don't put anyone on a pedestal, like anyone. Because I'm just like, at the end of the day, you're just a human being.
100%.
I can learn stuff from you, absolutely. But then there's also a lot of things that I can just see you're a human being just trying to figure it out yourself. Interpretation can often be disguised as truth. And that's what a lot of people think truth is that they think, no, this is the truth. But at the end of the day, it's just an interpretation that was passed on to you. No matter what belief system you have, you know, and I see this a lot in Christianity, which it's hard to talk to Christians sometimes, even though I consider myself a follower of Christ. It's because, and that's why a lot of people in Christianity think that I'm like this like New Age Christian demonic guy. But I'm just like, at the end of the day, whatever you're saying to me is just an interpretation at the end of the day. Because words that are written from another human can be interpreted in hundreds of different ways, which is why there's so many denominations of one religion. And that's why
that interpretation is not truth. It's so true.
Because at the end of the day, it's just an opinion.
Yeah. Based on somebody's conditioning, programming, filters. Yeah.
So that's why I went through a big stage where I was always very much like, I need to tell the truth to people. But then I had to humble myself. I was like, well, actually, bro, you don't actually know the truth. You just have your own understanding and interpretation of what you believe the truth to be.
That's it.
And that's not like the ultimate truth. So that's why, for me, I have kind of transcended past the stage of trying to like wake people up from the matrix of like religion and spirituality. And I have come to a place where I walk with a lot of discernment, and because I have my own connection with God that is like solid and strong, that I like strengthen every single day, that's all I really need. And that's, I think, the difference between true spirituality and religion. Because at the end of the day, like a lot of, I think true spirituality, and this is a word, because spirituality is a word that people throw around all the time. True spirituality, in my personal opinion, is a personal relationship and connection with spirit, with God creator, right? That's a personal relationship, which means you're nurturing that relationship like an actual relationship every single day, and that's part of your growth. I think modern day social media spirituality has become a religion within itself, which is what people would consider to be like new age religion, right? Which is, again, is just a set of belief systems that's been taken from all these different places. And you know, obviously there's a lot of good and positive, and there's also a lot of darkness and negative in there as well. So I think true spirituality transcends religion, and it's your personal connection and relationship with God, which is why you can have religious people that aren't spiritual, and you can have spiritual people that aren't religious. That's why for me, I seek to understand everyone and learn from everyone, because I think there's something to learn from everyone. I can sit down and pray with a Christian, I can pray with a Muslim, I can meditate. I've meditated in Buddhist temples, I can go to a Hindu temple and spend time there. I can hang out with some new agey people. I can go sit plant medicine with some shamans. I can do all of it because my connection with God is solid and strong, and that's between me and him. That's why when a lot of people are like, oh, like, especially Christians are always like, oh, you're a sinner, you're evil, like, you got to repent, like, this is wrong. Like, at the end of the day, keep the relationship with God between me and him, and you keep your relationship between you and God yourself, you know. And I think that's the most important thing. But I think, coming back to your question, this is a long answer.
That's the best quick fire we've had.
I think, coming back to your question, the reason why people are spiritually starved is because they don't have relationship with God.
Yeah, that's it.
And they're just seeking they're seeking fantasy and intellectualizing and all these like theories and concepts that they're just consuming through social media, but they're not actually putting into practice to actually seek connection.
Yeah, that integration and embodiment piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, to build that personal relationship. That's it. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to figure out how I want to word this next question. Actual quick fire. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
I'm just going to load it on. Do you believe in aliens? Are they here yet? Are they coming? And I'm just asking this question because I'm a psychopath and I am obsessed with aliens, and I just love getting people's opinions. So in under 30 seconds, go.
Yes. Yes, I do believe in aliens.
Love it.
Yeah, I do believe in aliens because we live in a multi-dimensional universe that is infinite, which means like we're one planet within billions of stars and light systems. So of course I believe there's aliens. And you know, when you look into the history of humanity and the history of this planet, there's a lot of stories and evidence of extraterrestrial alien influence on our civilization. So absolutely.
Shout out ancient aliens.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Love that. Oh, I just love hearing the different opinions on it to just like add into my basket of my resonance of truth with that, you know. Oh my gee, it has been an absolute honor to have you here. I've smiled so much through this podcast, learned so much, felt so inspired, so activated. You've given so many incredible nuggets, and I'd love for you to just tell the peeps listening where they can find out more about you, connect with you, and create their own resonance with you as well.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, firstly, thank you. Thank you for having me. It was such an amazing conversation. Very, very powerful.
So good.
For me, just Eon's World on all platforms. So AEON, Eon's World, and world is spelled with an X instead of an O. So WXRLD. On YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Spotify. New album, Out the Mud's coming out this year as well.
Yes.
So
we're so excited. Thank you so much. It's been real.
I appreciate it.
Shout out.